Often we share our code that has this little guy in it. He's a pipe operator, and he's very useful for writing code in a nice, clear layout that matches the way that you think about data processing. So when we're doing data manipulation, often we are using this guy quite a lot. And when you see it for the first time, you're probably going to go, well, what the hell is that? Well, this video is going to explain what the hell that is. The first thing, we need to start with some basics about R. The first thing we need to know is that everything in R is an object, right? So everything that you interact with in R is an object. So let's just make that a bit tangible, and we're going to create an object called X, and we're going to set it to 10. Now, on this right-hand side here, you can see in my global environment, I have an object called X now, and it's set to 10. I can also use the very useful function is str, which is going to produce a string representation of my object, and it's going to tell me that that object is of type numeric and its value is set to 10. Now, having an object is only useful to the extent that I can actually interact with it and do things with it. And functions are the tool for doing that. So functions are things that operate on objects and return other objects, or in some cases transform the objects that they're operating on. A real example. So here we're using the function called sum to sum up some numbers. We can sum 2 numbers, 3 numbers, however many numbers we like. In this case, we've passed it arguments of 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, and it's correctly telling us that the result of that is 6. Now, if we call a function and it returns an object that we're not doing anything with, R prints that out to the console. In this case, because I'm in a notebook, it's put it below the code block that I'm looking at. But if I move my head here, you can see that everything that I'm doing here is being pushed out to the console. So you can see it down here as well. Now, a thing to be aware of is functions themselves are also objects. So, for example, we can't see that sum function up in this global environment because that's my bit. It's not the stuff that's to do with base R or the packages, although I can see a lot of that if I click on here. But I can still do str sum, and that's going to tell me that sum is indeed a function, and I can pass it a whole bunch of stuff. Now, very quickly, I can also create my own functions, and these are objects as well, just like the predefined one. So if I create a James sum, which is going to be like the sum function, but because it's a James sum, it's going to be better, right? So I'm going to take only 2 arguments, and I put curly brackets to make my code nice and easy. The stuff in the curly brackets is going to run, and I'm going to return a plus b plus 1 because my function's better. Right, now if I run that guy, now I get a function called James sum up here, and it tells me that, sorry, now I get an object called James sum. It tells me that that is a function, and it takes 2 arguments, a and b. So I can call that guy by going James sum. Let's keep it nice and simple so I can do the maths. 1 and 2. Let's go. And the answer to James sum 1 and 2 is not 3, it's 4, because we added on this extra number here. Now, that was all some basic stuff around objects and functions. Let's get on to the important bit that leads into how these pipes work. So in general, what we've just seen is we've seen functions written as verb brackets object. So when you see it written down, pick up the cat would be pick up brackets cat. All right? And that makes sense. That's easy. That matches English if you're only doing one thing to an object or a group of objects. But often we might be doing multiple things to the cat, right? So we might, when we're talking about this, we might say, well, get the cat, pick it up, then put it on your lap, then stroke it. Now, if we were trying to do that in normal kind of bracket land, that gets quite hard. But the pipe operator, that guy that this video is all about, is a useful thing that lets us do this kind of syntax. So we start with cat, then pipe it into pickup, then pipe it into put on lap, then pipe it into stroke. So we say, get the cat, pick it up, put it on your lap, stroke. Whereas in our normal syntax land, we'd go backwards, right? We'd have to say, pick up the cat, then put on the lap the result of picking up the cat, then stroke the result of all of that, which you'll agree looks horrible and is backwards and confusing. So if you're a human, you don't really like this kind of syntax for sequential operations to the same thing. So the pipe operator is a useful thing that lets us chain together operations on the same object. And the tidyverse package, which you'll see us use a lot, their functions are written in a consistent way that means that it's really, really easy to chain things together. So first of all, we need to install and load the tidyverse package. If we haven't installed the package, then run this, install.packages tidyverse. Then to include it, we call library tidyverse here. And by the way, when I'm running this stuff, I'm selecting it and I'm pressing Control and Enter. I could also run it by pressing this green button here if I wanted to run the whole lot. So we're going to look at a real example, but first I'll explain exactly what that pipe is doing. So remember the sum operator. We can use it to add up numbers, right? Sum 1, 2, 3 gives us 6. Now these things that we pass to our sum are called arguments. The pipe operator lets us have the first one of these arguments outside the function and pipe it in. That's probably why it's called a pipe operator. So for example, we could have the 1, which is sort of analogous to our cat, and then I want to pipe it to sum 2 and 3. So that is the same thing as that, which we can see when we run it, gives us 6. You know, we're getting this guy is exactly the same as this. We've taken out that first argument and it sits outside the function here and gets piped in. I'll put it on one line just so it makes it easier to see. Okay, so this bit is doing is saying, actually, mate, do that. Okay. So that's it really. So the pipe just makes it easy to chain stuff together. So when you have an operation, which lots of data science operations look like this, you know, get some data, sort it, filter it, add a new column on the end of it, plot it, you know, and these transformations are very easily piped together if you're using the tidyverse functions. So here, for example, I think I've got x is 10. So I can say x and then get x, add 10 to it, then take the maximum value of that result with 1, 2, and 4, which of course just returns x plus 10, then take the square root of it. And that's just taking that, then doing that, then doing that, then doing that. Now, when I share code and when Chris shares code and when any of the members share code, you want to kind of understand what it's doing. And this code makes it easy to do that. So I can select the first bit, which is x, hit Control and Enter, and it's showing me here that x is 10. Now I can get the next transformation. Just highlight the next transformation, Control and Enter. Now it's showing me that the result of x plus 10 is 20. And that's obvious because x was 10, right? Now we're going to pipe that result, 20, into the maximum function, max 1, 2, 4. So that's just going to look exactly like, if you look down here, that's exactly like me doing this. 20, 1, 2, 4, which of course the biggest number there is 20, so it returns 20. But I can check that by highlighting that, running it, and we see that the result of that transformation is 20. Now I pass that 20 into the square root function. All that's doing is square root 20. I get 4.44. Now if I run the whole transformation, I get 4.47. So it's a nice way to keep code compact, keep it in the order that a human thinks about it, but still have the ability to run each of the transformations step by step, debug them, understand them, and things like that. So that was a quick tour of pipes, why we use them, how they work. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, shout out anytime. I'm always here.